So I'll start at the beginning just to enable people to catch up when they watch it later. So I'll start at the beginning, just, okay, I guess we are live. Right, so welcome to Human Design, yes, and I'll just introduce Lorenz and myself. We've been coming together, we've been staying together, we came to Kenya together over a year ago, and we, even before that, both of us have been involved with human design since 2017. And it's just made life a lot easier, just understanding it. We basically have daily conversations about human design. And he and I are very, very different. He's a reflector and I'm a generator. And what does that mean? So what I'll just do is I'll share my screen and show you the different auras of the four basic types. So we have, most of the people are generator auras. And we have this aura that is just welcoming, and we want to do everything together, and we feel sorry for someone who is alone. So can I come and help you, you know, be in company? And we have what's called the solar plexus, the sacral center, the second from the bottom, the red square. We have that colored in, and it's like a motor. It's like a buzz. There's a constant buzz, and never stops. It's sometimes I think of it. It's like a cat just going. And then you have the other three. You see, they don't have that buzzing center. They don't have that constant electricity that just goes and goes and goes and runs. And so this here is the projector. And you can see that the projector has a pointed aura. So the projector just focuses in on one person, on one thing. That the projector it's really like almost like shining a light on one person. And when you're in that light of the projector, you just feel wonderful. And when the projector takes that light onto someone else, it's almost like you've been dropped like a hot potato. And it can feel quite uncomfortable if you don't understand what's going on. It's if you don't understand that this is just the mechanics of how a projector works. It's you can feel like, what's wrong with me, or is he angry at me, or, you know, as a projector, as a generator. I'm a generator, so it took me a long time. I'm so glad to have human design to understand why people just take their focus away, and they can't just have their focus on everybody in the room. Their focus is just on one person at a time. And that can be, so for example, you have a mother who's a projector and the child is a generator, and the child gets that projection all the time. But when that projection is not there anymore, and the mother focuses, let's say, on the father or on another child, or chatting with someone else, it's like there's nothing there for you anymore. And the child, for sometimes it can feel very comfortable. Finally, I'm not the focus anymore. Finally, I can be myself. Or it can be, what's wrong with me? What happened? Why is the focus not on me anymore? Understanding that this is just the mechanics. It's just how it is. takes it away from any kind of reaction we have to that feeling. Then we have the manifester. So the manifester, what differentiates the manifester is that the manifester has the throat colored in. That's that square, the third one from the top, brown. And it has a connection to one of these four motors, these four chakras that have a buzz. And these are the four motors. So it just needs a connection to one of these four motors to make it a manifester. So the manifester is, we manifest through our throat. We manifest through the word that comes out, whatever it is that comes out, connected to the energy, a constant energy. And one of these four motors, that makes it manifester. And the manifester is the only person who can, from within themselves, decide what to do. So they get up and do whatever they do. Important for the manifester is to actually inform the other people, because the reaction is like, oh, they just got up and did something. Why are they doing that? What are they doing that for? There's a lot of question in all the others about what's going on. So for the manifester, it's really good to inform other people what they're about to do. And their aura is often described as repelling, like pushing people away. It's like, okay, I'm getting up and I'm doing this. So that's how it can feel to others. But if the others understand that this is really about being informed about what that person is doing, and that it's wonderful that they instigate something, and that their true deep want, the true deep desire is peace, then it can become okay. And then we have the reflector here. And the reflector has absolutely no chakras defined. And you'll see that we have nine chakras. Since 1781, I think it is, we all have 9 chakras. Before it was 7 centers of 7 chakras. And the reflector, not having any of these centers defined, and there's only 1% of the population that are reflectors. So they're very rare, but everybody knows more than 100 people. So everybody has experienced the reflector in one way or another. The reflector's aura is a little bit like, it's often described as Teflon. So it's almost like the reflector goes around and automatically tastes all the other people, just gets a little bit of a taste from everybody that's there, or from whole systems, a little bit of a taste of what's happening in the world, what's happening with the stars, what's just almost, maybe it's better if you talk about this, Lorenz, since you're a reflector. Do you want to describe what it's like to be you?
Yes, I will try. I mean, I am still figuring it out, and I have learned so much being together with you, that we can talk about and I can experiment with these different aspects, because there's so few of us. I haven't met any other reflector so far, especially none that has been in their experiment. So I have just my experience to go on. And it is basically what Una said. It feels like wherever I am, I take samples of everything that's around me, be it people or environments. Now I'm in a hotel, so I'm sampling the atmosphere of the hotel. Is it cozy? Is it working well? What is happening in this space? And they are often described as the canary in the coal mine. So if the reflector in your system isn't well, most likely something in the surrounding system isn't working well. And that is my experience as well. So it is that kind of living out to a certain degree. It's not being identified with what I'm taking in, but it affects me. I cannot shut it off. That's not what I'm here for. It affects me what I take in. If people around me are authentic and they are correct, I can be a very joyful person, and I can lead a very happy life. And if my surroundings are not correct, or there is a lot of frustration or anger, or all the things that we experience in a not self, this affects me as well. So for the reflector, it's very, very important to be in the right place, in the right space. And as for the aura, that is where a lot of the experimentation is happening right now. I did often experience it as a Teflon aura. So I take things in, but they don't stick. If I can decondition, if I am in a different place, it kind of falls off. But it also doesn't let people close necessarily, or not fast at any rate. And that is changing a little bit right now. So it's very exciting to figure out how am I really supposed to work. I think there is least information about reflectors in all the human design. What is written, what Ra talked about, he mostly focused on the other types because there's more of them. So we are doing research every day.
Yes. Thank you, Lorenz. So your internet is a little bit choppy. If you can move closer to the router, that would be great. But it came through what you said. I think that yes, since there's only 1% of reflectors, a lot of information still needs to come through. And what I think is, we have defined and undefined centers. So when it's white, it means it's undefined. And when it's colored in, it's defined. And it's just a different way of how the energy works. So if it's defined, it just means this constant energy. In that center, in that chakra, there's a constant energy flow. We can rely on it. And when it's undefined, it's almost like a receptor, and I'm receiving everything from the outside, and I'm amplifying everything that comes from the outside. So when you have a reflector where nothing is defined, everything is open, you're tasting everything from everywhere, theoretically you can be influenced by the outside. And that's where we become what's called the not self. We become defined from teachers, gurus, parents, the matrix, society, instead of being who we are, because they have such easy access to us. And what I'm thinking is that because there's so much possibility with the reflector for being influenced from the outside, that the shield comes up. There's that Teflon shield where nothing sticks. And we've just been experimenting, like you said, Lorenz, we've been experimenting with different ways of running that aura of the reflector, where instead of having that shield of going to a place, and I think you'll be able to explain that better, Lorenz, a place of, I'm just going to call it higher consciousness right now.
Yeah, maybe if I just add something to that, because it's exactly like you say, I think this shield and it has something repelling. It comes up because I, for one, I am not used to an environment that's good. So this kind of pushing away and making sure that at least in my own space everything is all right has something to do with shutting a lot of people off, because most people are not correct. Like about 90% or 95% of the population isn't living according to their design. And for reflectors, for me at least, and what I've heard from others, that is deeply, deeply uncomfortable, more than the other types, because I don't have my own reliable energy that can define others, that is just stable. So I'm getting influenced all the time. And now spending time in very serene, very natural places and spending a lot of time with Una, which is about the most correct being that I have ever met, just allows me to relax and discover what it is, how it would be and how it would feel if I can be in an environment that is authentic, that is living correctly, that is living according to how it's meant to be. That's how it feels to me.
And that reminds me of the example you gave me. I hope it's okay to share, where you're in your own space in your room, and you're in this beautiful, almost cathedral-like beautiful energy, and then your girlfriend generator with all this energy bursts into that beautiful space that you've just created for yourself. That's an image that has stuck with me for
Yeah, and I'm not sure, it would be very interesting how it feels for projectors, for example, but to me that is like a whirlwind. It's like a tsunami coming into a very expanded and calm space. And again, that is an experience that I had, and I'm always open to experiment with changes, because at first it also felt the same with you, just because energy is coming in, where before there wasn't any energy. It was just stillness, which is very enjoyable to me. And now, and this is a new experiment, it feels like I can take that a little bit differently, and I don't have to push the person away so much as I had before, but can work with that energy that is coming in, and it doesn't feel dangerous anymore.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. That's wonderful. So reflector as an extreme, and generators on the other side as the extreme. And I have 4, and I'm going to change the screen and share. Let's see. Here. Share my chart. And you can see as an extreme, these 4 are motors, constant buzzes, just a buzz. And I have all 4 of them defined. So this is a very strong energy for people who are not generators, or who do not have these 4 defined. So even, let's see, we have Yana has two of the motors defined and 2 undefined. And Marlene has 1 energy center defined and 3 open, and in total a lot a lot of the centers open. So yes, where do we go from here? What I notice with people who have only two centers defined, is that still there's a lot of influence possible from the outside, a lot of a great chance to not be correct. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about operating correctly, operating authentically according to one's own design. And it's when we listen to the mind, we are not operating correctly. What we need to do is, there's two things that we need. We need, let me just show you here. We have the type, so generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. And there's a subcategory, which is manifesting generators, which is a hybrid between generators and manifestors. They're mostly generators, but they do have the manifesting aspect. So this is important, how we operate. And then the inner authority is important. So let's look at the type, the generator. How do we operate correctly? How do we operate authentically? And it's about taking the right decisions in life. When we take the right decisions in life, life is just a piece of cake. It's just beautiful, and everything falls into place. So for generators, what we need to learn is that we need to respond. So somebody says something and I respond to it. Somebody sends me an email and I respond to it. The wind blows the chair over. I respond to that. I respond to an energy that's coming from the outside. And the response is, it triggers me into action. And then once I've got that energy that came from the outside and that I respond to, then I have to look at the inner authority of whether it is a yes or a no. Now, so I cannot start a project, or I shouldn't start a project because my mind tells me that this is now necessary, or because somebody says I should do something. That's not how it works. It's the energy that has to come and bring me into action, that triggers me into action. And then for the manifestors, this is true for the manifesting generators. So Sergei is also a generator. This is colored in, the sacral is colored in, but also a manifesting generator, because his throat is connected to the sacral. And so for the manifesting aspect, or the pure manifester, you just, within you, have that energy and you decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And that's correct for you. So for the manifesting generator, here, you've got both. On the one hand, you've got to respond to something, and then you feel it within you and you go into action instantly. The thing you have to do, though, is you have to look at what your authority is. And for Sergei, your authority is actually the sacral. So the sacral, let's see, who else do we have? We have Jana, same thing, manifesting generator. And
Jana is simply a generator, not a manifesting one.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. I have Marlene twice, but I should have Michelle here. Michelle is a manifesting generator. throat connected to one of the four motors, and actually double. You've got, Michelle, you've got the throat connected to the heart motor and to the emotional motor. So you've got that strength of just within yourself, you decide this is what you do, and you get up and do it. At the same time, the sacral. So when the sacral is defined, one of the things of how to, okay, I'm going to move to somebody who's not got the emotional defined. That's Sergey. A defined sacral, especially when the emotion is not defined, the way you take the decision is somebody asks you a yes/no question. Do you want to eat pizza? It's not, do you want to eat pizza or do you want to eat Indian food? That's not a no, yes/no question. You've got to ask a yes/no question. Lorenz is very experienced with being around people with the sacral defined. Do you want to share some of your examples of how it works?
Yes, so with people who have the sacral as their authority, in the chart it's called sacral authority. It's very good to, you can easily train it, or not train it, but experience it, learn how it works for you, because it's always true in the moment, and you can respond to questions in the moment. So my ex-girlfriend was, she's a generator, so I have a lot of experience with her process. So we would walk down the supermarket and she would go, I want chocolate, as we walk through the chocolate aisle. And I would just ask her again, do you want chocolate? And sometimes there would be a uh-huh, and sometimes there would be a uh-uh. So one thing to recognize about the sacral authority is that the response comes out as a sound, and it comes from deep within, from actually the sacral center. And it can be a yes or no, but even if it's a sound or a movement that comes from this place, it is correct. It doesn't have to be a yes or no, but it's always a response that is something like uh-huh, and a movement towards, or a uh-uh, and a movement away. And the funny thing is that you can see that very well in the strategy. So if a generator tries to manifest something, like thinking about, or not even thinking about, but just having pizza in mind and going, let's eat pizza tonight. The best thing you can do for that generator is to ask them again, do you want to eat pizza? And then there might be a uh-uh. That happened quite often, that she would say, let's go eat pizza. And I would ask, do you want to have pizza? And she would go, uh-uh. And that is exactly, and I mean, with pizza, it's not so important, right? But I don't know, let's buy a house. That's a bigger decision. And there it's very important to be able to respond to something. So ask your generator friends, ask them questions, and never ask a generator a question. It doesn't help them. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go eat? What do you want to eat? There is no answer to that, because it can't come with it cannot come with a yes or no. But that's a very important thing. And then the challenge for the manifesting generators, especially for the one we had before, which I believe was Michelle, which has the emotional defined, the solar plexus defined, is that you still have to respond to something before you initiate. And then I'm sure we'll go over that authority a little bit later, but then you even have to wait before you spring into action. So the ones that are pure generators, and especially the ones with emotional with sacral authority, your answer, your aha or is always true in the now. And it can change. Let it change if it changes. So if you want to buy a house today, maybe the energy in 2 weeks has shifted, and be open that if you're getting asked again or something comes up that you can respond to and your answer is no, that is perfectly fine. So there is no fault in a changing sacral answer. It's just the truth right now.
Yes, this reminds me a little bit of your experience, Lorenz, when you saw several generators trying to figure out where to eat, and there was nothing to respond to because they're all generators and it takes them half an hour to decide where to go and eat.
It's literally quite horrible. Like one would go, let's go there. And the other go like, yeah, we could do that. And then the other one goes, but we could also go there. And then the other two kind of, it's really not comfortable for them. And for me, of course, not either. And it ends up in frustration, which is the not self theme of the generator, because they ask themselves open question and they try to come up with proposals. And that was just a family that wasn't, they didn't know human design and wasn't aligned to it. What I would do if they knew human design is I would listen to myself and think what is probably the thing they want to do and try out some questions that they can respond to. Do you want to go there? And then two go aha, and one goes and then I would ask another question. Do you want to go there to eat, or do you want to get food home? And at some point their answers would align, and it would be so much easier. But there was a lot of stress for them to figure out what to do amongst themselves because they have no idea how they work.
Yes, and if they were all correct, if not right or wrong, but correct, they could ask each other, do you want to go eat pizza? Yeah, lovely example. So yes, and then when we look at the reflector and his way of deciding, well, that's a long process. Let's stick with here. What did we do? We looked at the generator, the pure generator. So Jana is a pure generator with a sacral authority. And what else do we have here? Sergey. Okay. Yeah, we just don't have enough examples yet. So if you want to put your examples into the Telegram group, that would be wonderful.
So the other one that we have as an authority is the emotional one, the one that you have open right now.
Right. Okay, let's go there. So other ways of deciding whether something is correct. So never from the mind, never analytical, but the emotional center. If this is colored in, then this is the authority that you have. Even if this is colored in, even if the sacral is colored in, your real big authority is the emotional center, the solar plexus center. And the emotional center, the way it decides things is, something comes towards me. I'm a generator. I need to generate it because this is colored in, and the authority is emotional. I need to respond, but the response is not in the now. I don't have that physical feeling. And actually, when I put my hand on the sacral, I can actually feel the physical response of yes or no, according to the sacral in the now, but the emotional is a wave. So if this is colored in and the emotional authority, it means that I have to wait. Generally, we say, we respond in saying, I have to sleep on that. I have to take my time with taking a decision. I will let you know when I feel it's correct. So the emotional wave just experiences different emotions around that energy that came to me. I can be angry about it. I can be sad about it. I can be joyful about it. It's just I keep on along the timeline of that wave. I keep on tuning into that energy that came, and I'm collecting more data points. And at some point, I know. Now we say sleep on it. We say sleep on it for 2 nights, but it can also be shorter, but it can also be very long. It can be several weeks. It can be several months until I know. I really know this is what I want to do. Then we have, okay, let's go here. Sergey again. This authority. So if the emotional is colored in, then that's your authority. If the sacral is colored in, then you've got your authority in the now. If these two are open and this is colored in, you are definitely not a generator because this is not colored in. You could be a manifestor, you could be a projector. And your information of whether, no, let's go first to how you work. The way you work is that you're not responding to something. You have to be invited. So the projectors are people who know a lot. They know so much and they see what's going on and they see right through the people they're with. They know what needs to be done. But they cannot do it out of themselves because they're not manifestors. And if they just do it, it's not going to work. People don't appreciate their information. A manifestor can just say what they want to say, but the projector cannot. He has to wait until they're invited. So how do you get that precious information that the projector has from him? You have to invite him. You have to actually say, I invite you to tell me. Now, a projector that works correctly is, for example, a therapist. So remember, the projector has this aura that is very pointed. So they focus on one person at a time. So that's what therapists do, doctors, healers, whatever. You've got one person after another. And the person is coming with the implicit invitation to please help me, please do this, please tell me, please, inform me. And so that's a perfect job for a projector. Focus and with the invitation. But if you're like in a family situation or in another business situation, keep remembering, and I'm still training myself, keep remembering to invite them. So where I came from, being a generator, I just, I'm responding to an energy, and somebody asks me a question. It might be a projector asking me a question because he's focused on me, and I just talk. And then when I'm finished, I expect the projector to also give their part of the information, and it's not coming. And I'm thinking, why is it not coming? They do need me to ask them. Firstly, because they're really not focused on themselves. They're focused on the other people. Whereas the generator is interested in experiencing this in themselves and understanding their own experience. The projector is interested in understanding the other person, in understanding the experience of the other person and the way the other person is. So for them to talk and share that information that they have is always, please tell me, what do you have? And what the projector then does is they'll ask a few questions. they'll ask me a few questions to which I can respond, and then they see right through, and they'll see what direction to take. They'll understand where everybody needs to go. Lorenz, do you have anything on projectors? And your microphone takes a while. Your microphone takes a while until it's adjusted.
Until it's adjusted. So, okay. I hope you can hear me now. I think it might be helpful if you pull up an actual projector chart, because we're still looking at a generator. If you have one at the ready.
So we don't have anybody
in this group. Yeah. What I would this invitation. I'll just talk and maybe you find one. The invitation is so important for the projector, because with their pointed aura, it's like a ray, like an X-ray, so they can see right through you. It's like standing naked before a projector, and that's not always like, that can feel strange. And that's why the invitation is so important, because if they share something they see, but it hasn't been invited by the person they are sharing it with, it will not, the person that is receiving it from the projector might be very unhappy. Like, it wasn't invited that you tell me this. Why are you telling me this? This feels very uncomfortable. And then the projector, of course, doesn't feel seen because they just shared their gift, and it leads to bitterness. So that's why the invitation is so very important. And it can be deeply difficult for projectors to wait for the invitation, because so few people know how to interact with the type correctly. They might never get it, or it might come in an energetic way, but not an outspoken way. So if you want to make the life of your projector friend easy, as Una said, invite them. You don't have to use the word invitation, of course, although for me it comes quite naturally. I say you're invited to come over, or you're invited to go have a coffee together. And what it does is it kind of relieves the stress of having to decide, because it's just an invitation and they still have to decide according to their authority if they are going to take the invitation or not. Una had a very good example when we tried to figure out what's actually happening, what is difference. For Una, it's very natural to say, let's go grab a coffee together. And for another generator, that's perfect. They respond to that. They go, uh-huh. And then they go have coffee together and have a great time. Or they go, uh-uh. And she asks somebody else. But if you go to the projector and say, let's go have a coffee together, the projector is kind of in a bad spot, because he already knows that if he says no, the generator won't understand what's happening, because what is this energy that's coming? And if he says yes, he didn't really, like most probably he didn't have the time to really see if that is correct for him. And an invitation has a different energy. If I say, come, let's go and grab a coffee together, or I'm going to go grab a coffee, you're very invited. I would love for you to join. That is very different. It's kind of almost non-committal, and it gives the projector the space that they need to decide according to their authority if they want to take the invitation or not. So these are key points in how the different types interact with each other, which limits a lot of resistance and a lot of strangeness, in interaction.
Yes, so this is a projector, not a generator, not a manifester, because the throat is not connected to any of the 4 motors. Obviously not a reflector because we have some definitions. Yeah, so this is just the example for the projector. Yes, it's the generator is all about let's us do this all together. And it's so hard for the generator when somebody doesn't want that. So when we share a kitchen, you know, it took me a while. So Lorenz is in the kitchen and he's cooking something. And I'm thinking, okay, he probably wants this. And I want it. And we cook together. No. Lorenz is quite happy to be in the kitchen all by himself, which means I can relax outside and be served. So there's joy in that, but I have to switch my thinking. Yes, and the same with the projector who is quite happy to be by himself too, whereas the generator loves to be amongst other people and doesn't understand it when somebody pushes away.
And just one more sentence to that, that doesn't mean that as a generator you're inherently social, and as a projector or a reflector or a manifestor you're inherently antisocial. That's not what it's about. There's a lot more information in the chart that goes to the way of, are you rather a tribal person or an individual person? But on a mechanical level that we cannot really change, because that's the vehicle we are born into, the generator has this enveloping aura that just automatically brings people into them. So that's usually what happens, and the other types do not have that. So the thing of doing something together is inherently a generator's thing, even though that doesn't mean it's always like that, or if you want to do things alone you're like a bad generator or something. That's not how it works. But on a mechanical level, this taking in and together and as a group, that is specifically a generator thing.
So just going to share. Where do we have it? Our examples again. So the important things are the type, the generator. How does it work? Generator or manifestor or manifesting generator or reflector. How do we work? How do the generator responds? The projector needs to be invited. The manifestor brings it out from within themselves. And the reflector, Lorenz?
I was muted, sorry. The reflector waits for 28 days.
Right.
And the manifestor informs. Yes,
the manifestor informs. So that's the strategy with which we go through life. And then the inner authority, we'll talk about that more next time, is how we decide whether we do something or we don't do something. And the red flag is the not self theme. That's when we've been so brainwashed, mind controlled by the matrix, by what we're supposed to be doing. When we're frustrated, when a generator is frustrated, we can think back to when we were frustrated. We didn't follow our own inner authority. We did something because we were told to do so. We were not sovereign. And where do we have it? We had a manifesting set. We had the manifesting generator. So same for the manifesting generator. If you're frustrated and you look back through your life when you were frustrated, Were you following your strategy? Did you wait until the energy came? And did you follow your authority? In this case, for Michelle, the authority is the emotional wave. Did you wait until you responded? Yes. Same for, so for the projector, did you wait for the invitation? And the red flag for the projector is bitterness, like Lorenz said. For the manifester, it's, did you inform the other people? Did you honk the horn to let people know that you're coming with your truck? Because manifestors have very strong energy, just this doing energy. So honk the horn, let people know I'm coming. And if you're at peace afterwards, if you feel peace, you did it right. If you're not at peace,
You feel anger.
You feel anger. You feel you didn't inform the other people, so you're angry. Yes, and for the projector, it's surprise and disappointment. If you're
For the reflector.
For the reflector, sorry. For the reflector, if you did it right, you're surprised. And I want you to say this, Lorenz, because it comes out right. Because you.
Yeah, sure. It's a positive surprise. Is the green flag, like the positive feeling when everything is aligned. There is positive surprise, and if it's not, then there is disappointment. And there's a lot to say about this, because everything is kind of how do I say that? I always see the structure behind it, like where does it start, and then how does it kind of trickle down and come out as this thing that is then in the chart. So for example, just to bring, some people have structural minds. To order this a little bit, we have 4 types: the generator and the manifestor as energy types, and the projector and reflector as non-energy types. And each of the type has its specific strategy that's always the same. So all projectors need to be invited, all generators need to respond, and all manifestors need to inform, and all reflectors need to wait. 28 days if it's a big decision, but need to wait. And then the authority is individual. So you can have a generator that needs to respond because he or she is a generator, but with different authorities. It can either be sacral or emotional for the generator. Or for the projector, you have many different ways for your inner authority, which is where do you listen to actually make the decision after you got an invitation. How do you then decide to say yes or no to that invitation? So there's layers and layers. And with these green and red flags, it's kind of like signposts, because it's not a human design is supposed to be experimented with. This listening to it and understanding it doesn't change anything. Living it changes it. And you don't have to believe what I or Una or Ra or whoever is saying. Experiment with it. And if you experience these positive or negative signposts, you know if it's true or not for yourself or when you observe others. And just maybe to go through them again in the structure, Una said most of them, but I think there were some positive ones that you missed. For the generator, the negative, the red flag for not being correct is frustration, and the green flag is satisfaction. And the frustration comes from basically the yes or no from the sacral or the emotional is, where do you put your energy? Do you put your energy somewhere that you really have a yes for? Because as a generator, you're the worker, you're the busy bees, you're basically the life force of the planet. Without the generators, we all die off. Ra Uru Hu has this lovely term of cosmic parasites for all the other types than generators. So generators, they generate the world. Now, if you put your energy to something that you have been brainwashed into or homogenized into, say, let's say, sitting in an office for 5 days, that might be correct for you, but for most people it's not. Then you will experience frustration because it just doesn't feel good. There is no satisfaction in putting your energy to something that you didn't have a yes to, that you didn't enter into correctly, and you become a slave. And that's where these signposts come from. So satisfaction is after a day with your energy well spent, and having done things you had a yes for, you can be positively and happily exhausted in the evening, and there will be satisfaction. If you're slaving for someone else, there will be frustration. And for the manifester, they need to inform because their energy is so out there, it makes everybody uncomfortable. And they don't have to wait as the only other type. So all the other types are not used to anybody who doesn't need to wait. And a manifester can go up and do something. And that's uncomfortable for most of us because we're not used to it. So they need to inform to take the edge off. They need to inform the boss that they're leaving the job tomorrow. But they can do it. They don't need to respond to anything. If they took the decision according to their inner authority, they just do things. They don't have to wait. And if they do that, if they inform and they listen to their inner authority, they experience peace. If not, they experience anger because everybody will put stones in their way to try and control them because they are so powerful and they don't have to wait. And everybody is trying to kind of adapt them to what they are used to. And it starts very early as a child. Like parenting a manifestor isn't the most easy job because they just do things. They don't have to wait. They don't have to ask. They need to learn to ask their parents for permission, but they are not here to be told what to do. And for the projector, we went over it already with bitterness being the negative one. Success is the positive one. So if and acknowledgement is also what I feel deeply. Because if they get the invitation and they can be the guide, they can use their gift in the correct way, they will be acknowledged, they will be seen for what they bring, and they will experience success. And for the reflector, we also covered it. The disappointment comes from identifying with the things that the reflector is sampling and the potential that the reflector then sees in others and holding on to that and identifying with that. And then the potential not being fulfilled leads to disappointment. But if there is no identification, there can be positive surprises abound. And just going through life and seeing unique places and people and being positively surprised by what is seen is very, very positive for the reflector.
Okay, yes, thank you. That was great. Yeah, a main point for me is seeing how we can move from with human design from being that slave as generators, especially being that slave that works and works and works for somebody else and not getting the satisfaction from it, and moving to being correct, which makes us creators. Like Lorenz said, we are the creators of the world. The other types don't create in that sense. Anyway, Marlene, do you have anything to add or say or anything?
Well, up until now, all is good. My mom is a projector, so there were some insights concerning that. Especially when it's about the bitterness. So when she doesn't get invited to do something, but she does something, then she really, like, it gets the better of her, and she doesn't know how to handle that because she's not appreciated doing what she wants to do. And that often leads to not that very often, but when it comes up and she didn't get any invitation, but acts nonetheless, then situations come up that are not to her liking, and no one knows what's happening because all of a sudden she's very bitter. And so it's absolutely correct what you just said about the projector as well. Yes, for me personally, since I have only 2 centers defined, I kind of, when we, in my chart, it's the design chart and the personal chart. I'm not sure whether to call it like that. They together give the definition. Without that, the design chart is like open, and the personal chart is open as well.
Personality.
Huh?
The personality chart. Yeah.
Personality chart, right. So at times I also have some traits of the reflector, I feel. I'm not sure, but I can absolutely relate to the frustration that comes up when I'm not true to my design. And what I am processing is how should we deal with the situations when in a surrounding where everyone tries to be aware of the other designs and tries to understand, that's one thing. But if we are in a surrounding where people do not care and think like, okay, you need to adapt yourself to us. So anything you would like to I don't know, say about that?
Yes. So, like, how do we bring the world together in peace? You are peace people, and how do we create harmony and peace and all of that in the world? Well, Ra Uru Hu's idea was that everybody understands human design, and he was hoping that this goes faster, but he realized that human design, it's I guess a slow process, but very important for 2027, and we'll be talking about that more. I'm hoping that this will help, that more people will join, and the more people who are aware of how that operates and can actually feel the energy and experiment with it, the better off we'll be. And so my idea is that when we create communities, when we come together in families, that we understand and we talk about it. This is at least how Lorenz and I have been doing it. And every time there's a misunderstanding or anything that where we're different, we can always find the answer in human design so far. It's the best answer I can come up with. I don't have any more for you, Marlene. Maybe you, Lorenz?
What I am thinking is, it, like everything, it starts with oneself, and the correctness isn't depending on the environment. I think what rather will happen is, by you being correct, or by anybody being correct, the correct environment will also show up. Human design is pretty radical in that, because with your design, for example, you can have somebody ask you the big questions, and you have truth in the now, or right now, to these big questions from your sacral. So do you like your job? Do you want to work on your job? Is the place where you're living the right place? Do you want to move? Do you want to change country? Do you want to, this is possible with the sacral authority to really check. And then comes the hard part, and realizing where the mind tries to interfere with the big questions, with the hard questions, and goes like, oh, this is too dangerous, or goes, here I should answer that. But by now we can feel it. It's obvious if the answer really comes from the sacral, or if the mind interferes, makes a block, doesn't allow the answer to come forth. So that would be my answer to your question. Experiment with your own authority and design, and maybe you will be surprised and satisfied, hopefully as well, what the answers are and where it takes you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe get somebody who also understands a little bit about human design, or maybe not, to ask the question. So you tell them what the question is. If you want to know whether you should move, tell them, ask me, do you want to move? And they speak it, and you will feel the response from your body.
Yeah.
And just we didn't talk about this. The red is the design, and the black is the personality. And what Marlene was saying is that if you only look at the red, or only at the black lines, then you are a reflector. So this is very unusual. So you can experiment and tell us how did you feel with what Lorenz said? How do you feel with the reflector energy?
Yeah. I would be extremely curious to that.
So right now?
Sure.
Okay. So for me, it's quite natural, because that's my design, and that's the only design I have. I'd say so. There are. I definitely need time by myself. So sorting things out without having too much energy around me, and too many people interfering into my design, into my system, which is quite difficult living in a city because there are always people around me. And so I perceive that as a challenge. I know that it's a good treat for me to leave that space every once in a while, or each time a day, one time a day at least, to feel myself better. Yes, so I do have the authority that comes along with the generator. And I do have my defined self that tells me what is right or wrong. So I don't have to, I'm quite sure about where my direction is in life, with the yellow center in the middle. Yes, right. But in spite of that, it doesn't always feel like it. So sometimes I can get confused. I can feel other people very well. If something's not right, I can feel that as well. I can feel very uncomfortable around people if something's not not right. And it's sometimes very tough for me not to take that into as something. I mean, it's got nothing to do with me, but at times it feels as if it's got to do something with me. So it's just that's something that I am learning, not to take not to take things personally. I wouldn't say that, but not to think that they have to do with me and my presence there. So really, yeah. And I know that I do better since I don't feel responsible for what people decide to do, and also to take responsibility for my breaks and say, okay, don't count on me right now. I need a break or some time for myself. And if I communicate that and do not get involved too much, then yeah, I do pretty well with other people, I'd say.
Yeah, I think, I've noticed that people who just have two defined centers, they often need a lot of space just because all these are open, and it's so easy for them to amplify and take in everything from the surroundings. So I've noticed that they retreat a lot and need that. And yes, what you're saying, the way I feel it is, I've always felt whether somebody is authentic or not. And if they're not authentic, even before human design, it was uncomfortable for me to be around them. And I didn't have words for that. And so now I have words with the human design. Somebody's not operating correctly according to their human design, but being a slave to the system and working according to the mind. We choose our environment. So with our correct, as I myself work better and better according to my own authorities, I choose my environment. So there's not that many people around that are not correct, not authentic. Yeah. So, any last words? Lorenz? No? Marlene? Then let's just wish that we have more projectors, pure manifestors to join so that we can learn from them. It's always interesting to feel these different energies. And we'll meet again. It'll be in the Telegram group. And I'm just stopping the recording.